things. We're kicking things off here with award-winning author, illustrator, and professor Mary Jane Begin. Works at RISD. She's headed into her 25th year there. She's also written and illustrated these books you have in front of us, and she just got back from China. Yeah, lots to talk about with her. So Mary Jane, come on in. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you so much for joining us. She was out here on the sidewalk with us earlier, ran into a former student.
I did. They're everywhere. They're in Providence.
So you are spreading your knowledge and your creativity, and we're very happy to have you here today. So I found you online because you are giving a discussion, doing a talk this weekend, and doing a book signing as well.
Yes.
So why don't you talk to us just a little bit about your career in illustration, because you have so much.
Oh my career? Oh dear.
Yeah, just talk to us a little bit of how you got into this.
So let's see. It started as a child. I wanted to draw and paint and decided that that wasn't really a career for me because as a child I didn't have the influences that told me that I could be an illustrator. So it wasn't until high school that I had a wonderful teacher suggested that I go to the Rhode Island School of Design, where I teach now. And I went there, I met Chris Van Allsburg, I had amazing teachers, launched my career in New York, came back to Providence actually to teach. Been teaching for 25 years, and in that time have been making books, both writing and illustrating, and doing some advertising work and other kinds of illustration.
That's pretty neat to be able to say, this is what I want to do as a kid, and then be like, I don't know, and then actually stick to your guns and go for it.
Well, as a youngster, I thought that I would be a teacher, and that seemed more doable, but it wasn't until I had encouragement that I could really pursue art as a career, and it wasn't until high school that I really felt like, okay, I can do this thing, and I have no regrets. I almost became a veterinarian. That was my plan, to go into the sciences, and then changed my mind and decided that this is what I love to do, so this is what I would do, and I have been.
And in sort of a way, you're still working with animals, because I feel like a lot of your medium, you draw animals, whether real or fictional, right?
That's right. I actually primarily illustrate animals. I do some people, but I love fur and textures, and I do love animals so much that it's fun to make them into characters, and I make the characters based on real people. They're always influenced by somebody that I know or a famous person.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do the people who they're based after know? You tell them?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. When I used Buddy Sugancy as my resource for The Wind in the Willows, he was Toady. Buddy didn't know about it initially, but when he found out, he had me on his radio show, and at first he wasn't very happy.
Oh no!
But then
that'd be so neat.
I won him over because I really believe Toad is one of the best characters in The Wind in the Willows, and he's the heart of the story. So he came around, and then he was happy to promote my books, and God rest his soul. It was a pretty interesting thing to work with Buddy Sugancy, knowing that yes, he was Toady.
He wasn't quite as excited from the get-go.
Initially, no, he was not, but but he came around.
So talk to me. So we have several books here that you have not only illustrated but authored as well. What is that like for you to be able to have both sides there? I've spoken with a couple children's authors and illustrators, and they said it comes from two very different sides of the brain. So how is that for you?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't start out as an author. I started out as an illustrator. So to me, it was all about the visual, and I would work with authors, but I didn't have the confidence that I could write. And then finally, about 10 years ago, I started to come up with story ideas, and they just had to tumble out of my head onto the computer. And once I saw that, I was like, I should make these into books. I should be both, fit both sides of the hemisphere with the writing and illustrating. But writing is similar, but it's not exactly the same in the sense that when I write, I'm in a space where I'm crafting a world, and with the illustrations, it's in service of the words in the text. So I always have to start with the words first, craft the world, the characters, and then I can respond with the visuals, whether I'm working with another author or I'm doing it myself. I don't start with the pictures. I might do a few little sketches, but they're usually rough and noodly, and I have to really get to the words.
That's interesting. I would think it would be the other way around. So that's why I asked the questions.
Yeah.
So curious. Let's talk a little bit about your teaching. Because you have you're going into your 25th year at RISD, which I think is phenomenal. And you're just coming back from China. What an amazing opportunity just to be able to spread your knowledge and your work and be able to inspire others. What is it like for you to be able to be a professor and to help others? And along with that, not only do you work at RISD, but you teach online classes as well. So this is a big part of your life, being able to share your knowledge with others.
I would have to say, as much as I love writing and illustrating, if I had to say which one fulfills me more, it's the teaching. And I think it's because you're able to affect people's lives, young people's lives, and the trajectory of what they'll do, what they'll choose, and to encourage them and give them something. And it's just an amazing feeling. I love teaching, whether it's China, online, Roanoke in a master's program at RISD. I get such joy out of it. I feel like I love it more than I did even when I first started. Every year it just grows. I think maybe I feel more confident in what I'm doing, and so it's a gift that I'm meant to give. That's all. That's the only way I can put it. So as much as I love drawing, this is almost more for me. I share the stories that I care about, and they have to be meaningful, but it's almost like, oh, I get to draw and paint. But teaching, it's really about the other. That's for me.
I mean, it's pretty incredible that you've been able to share this and be able to help inspire others, so continuing to give. I think that's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some of your art. I guess I didn't realize how certain pieces of work and how children's book works and how it kind of comes to light.
Yeah.
But you brought some of your sketches
I did.
With you. So I thought it'd be interesting, and you thought it'd be interesting too, I guess I should say, is to kind of show the process of how these characters have developed and evolved.
Sure.
So I thought that we could do that. So you brought some of the sketches with us, and then some of the original pieces.
I brought the original painting.
Which is just mind-blowing to me. And you said, and that's what you said, they're paintings.
They're paintings. They're paintings with watercolors, some with pastel, some with acrylic paint, but it's all original, traditional materials. I don't work digitally. So, yeah. I like to get my hands dirty. So I've tried digital, and I play with the iPad, but this is really my love, is to be able to paint and feel the materials.
So when you're working on a book, about how long does it take? I mean, I feel like that is a commitment.
Well, it depends. Like these books were 6 months apiece, roughly, from sketch to finish and including the story time. And actually, the Rhode Island Red book, amazingly, I did in 4 months because it was a super tight deadline.
So fast.
We were the last state to be chosen, and so we had to get it in. We were the last state to be printed, and so I had to literally finish this in 4 months, so it would be part of the whole package of all the states.
Okay.
So every state there's a book for it. We did the ours Rhode Island Red, and it's an ABC book about our wonderful state of Rhode Island, water fire. And it was funny to try to explain certain things, like the big blue bug is in here, and the people out in Michigan were like, "What's a big blue bug? Why
that sounds
scary?
scary.
Yeah, what are you doing? Water fire? What is this fire on water?" So yeah, there's nibbles. What a way. So this took a short period of time, but I literally worked every day for 4 months straight, and that was exhausting. And I have kids. Well, they're older now, but that was a real commitment to have to get this done in that time. But it was a really fun book to research and wonderful to illustrate.
Oh my goodness.
And now these books, and I'll be talking primarily about these at the National Museum of American Illustration on the 26th, which is this Saturday, at 1:30. It's open to the public. The only admission is charged because there's a museum, and the museum's amazing. Oh my gosh.
And beautiful. I haven't been, but I've heard amazing stories. Just gorgeous.
So it's the golden age of illustration, and it's N.C. Wyeth and Norman Rockwell. I mean, all these luminaries are there, and my work gets to be there too. And I get
Your work has been a lot of places, by the way. She's been in New York. She's been in Beverly Hills. You've been featured in the State House. So
it's been a few places.
You've been featured quite a few places yourself.
Thank you.
I'll give you the credit you deserve.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So this is the Dragons on Dazzle Island. This took me about 7 months to paint, it was almost a year in writing, but it was in fits and spurts, because I had to work with Hasbro. And this book took several months to write, and I'd say about 9 months to paint, because I was trying to determine, how do I illustrate these ponies, and it was right when the show was just beginning. They only had scripts, and they hadn't even aired the shows yet. I saw a few clips. So I was trying to adapt the new pony style, figure out where I would take the ponies, and I'll talk about that at the National Museum of American Illustration.
Okay.
But that book took a little bit longer than this one. By the time I did this book, it just came out in 2016, I really felt like I understood the characters, so it was easier to write the story and to illustrate the pictures. But yeah, it can take from 6 months to several years, depending. When my kids were little, books took longer. They took they usually took, they could take a year, 2 years, 3 years for Wind of the Willows. These are faster, 6 months to 9 months.
And just the color and the color is what I think is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
So we have some of the sketches here that is what I mean, because you can see these online and you can see all of it. You can go buy them. But I want to show some of these. I don't know how well they're going to transpire, but we're going to try. And then we're going to show you the actual paintings, which I think are phenomenal. And so when you're going through, this is what board?
This is like a storyboard. We call it a thumbnail layout, and it's basically the same thing as a storyboard. And what I do is I lay out where the text will go, just sort of mock it in. I lay out every page for the entire book because the publisher needs to be able to see what my vision is, where the characters will go, and what the basic layout of each picture will be. I do a really tight storyboard or
So cool.
layout, and some illustrators for books do a loose dummy and they bind it like a book. This is how I lay it out because I like to see all the pictures at one time and see how it's going to flow. And when this is finished, I send it to the publisher, and assuming they approve everything, they might make notes, little tag notes, they send it back to me, and then I do my finished sketches, and I can show that.
And are you kind of teaching this at RISD as well? Because you do illustration teaching at RISD, right?
I do.
You kind of work this in at all? Or?
I show this to I have a class this fall called What's Your Story? And it's the student stories.
Cool.
But I show them all my materials to talk about storyboarding and layout and text with images and things like that. Yeah, so I weave my own personal experience into the teaching at RISD.
Into that teaching, okay.
And then these are the finished sketches, and I do really super clean sketches because I take these after they've been approved by the publisher, and by Hasbro in this case, and I print them on watercolor paper. I literally take them to Concept Link, which is right here at RISD, and I print them onto my watercolor paper. I let them cure for 24 hours so the ink sets, and then I paint on top of them. So I don't have to redraw everything.
Oh, okay. So it's a little bit easier.
A little bit easier, because if I had to redraw, I would get bored, and it wouldn't look as good as my initial imagery. So I do very detailed drawings.
Okay.
It's easier just to
Because it wouldn't quite look exactly the same,
It
would
wouldn't.
it? Yeah.
Which things change. And I tell my students, if you can work with an original drawing that you've done in your sketchbook, just transfer that onto a surface if you can, or scan it into the computer, because it has a freshness about it that redrawing, you're not as happy doing it the second time. You've done it already. And this is the original. Let's see if I can.
Oh gosh, it's so pretty.
Sorry about that. The light's cast across the middle of it, but you can see. Here we go. That is pastel and watercolor, and it's done in a kind of gouache technique. It's very, very, obviously very detailed. This probably took me about 2 weeks to paint.
Wow. It's so, we'll see it in a second, but you can tell it almost doesn't even look real. It looks, it's so bright, it's so bold, it's so vivid,
Yeah.
and it's so neat that you do this by hand.
Yeah, it's actually, it's kind of therapeutic when I get into these little details. I listen to this German composer. It's very ethereal music, and I crank it up really loud, and I just get into a zone and paint. That's what I had to do for this, because everything is supposed to look like a reflected shell. It's iridescent like a shell.
I mean, just over here, the detailing, okay, where's the other one? So that was this one.
That's this one, and these are both from Under the Sparkling Sea. I brought those because all of the originals for Dragons on Dazzle Island are actually at the National Museum of American Illustration.
Which is where the talk is this weekend. Yeah.
Yep. So this is another original.
I love this character.
His name is Narwhali.
I think he's so great. So let's see if I can find it. Is this the...
Oh, no,
that's
that's Under the Sparkling
It's this
Sea.
one. I grabbed the wrong
You
one.
can see that the originals are quite a bit larger than the book printing, and that's because when things reduce, they tend to print better than if you enlarge something for printing.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they crop in, it tightens up. It's actually, I think the next scene.
There we go.
And you can see, it's cropped in quite a bit from what we have here. But I like to have some wiggle room, so. And I
That's
worked.
neat.
Yeah, so that was really exciting, and some of these originals are actually at the National Museum of American Illustration as well. And I will be doing I'll be doing signings, and I will be drawing dragons at the HasCon coming up.
That's so fun.
I'll be there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it'll be on their website, what
Okay.
the times are. But I will be drawing, I guess, on an overhead projector, teaching how to draw dragons, because the dragon has a while, and I'm like, I don't want to draw ponies. Everybody draws ponies. I'm draw a dragon. So I'll be drawing, signing books, and meeting, folks at HasCon.
And meeting people and fans there.
Yeah.
Can you show us the cat as well? Because
Yes.
this one is just absolutely stunning. And give us a little bit of the backstory on the cat.
So this is actually, I was invited to participate in an exhibition at the Springfield Art Museum. There's a new Dr. Seuss museum up in Springfield. It's part of all of their museums. So for the opening, they wanted certain artists that they chose, to do some kind of homage to Dr. Seuss. And so I love Dr. Seuss, but I also love Vermeer. Vermeer is one of my favorite painters, so I thought I'll combine the two. And this is based on a painting called The Girl in the Red Hat. And so this is the cat in the red and white hat. So I studied the Vermeer, painted it in that essence and way, the pose and all of that. And it's all acrylic and watercolor, and it just won 3x3 international show. It won in that competition as part of the overall competition.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's so neat is you have such diverse stuff, and then you're even delving into some things that you don't normally do, landscapes, which I think is neat. But you take a look at this, and then you take a look at some of the other characters you've done. I mean, they're totally just drastically different and totally beautiful in their own unique, different way.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
So it's pretty neat. Mary Jane Begin, thank you so much for joining us today in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. It's so interesting to be able just to see and experience some of your art. What is it, just kind of as we're wrapping things up here, what is it like for you to be able to practice art and to be able to experience it and to be able to teach? What is it like for you?
Gosh, that's a fully loaded question, so I'll try to simplify my answer. But I have to say, I've not done other things other than teaching and making art, so I can only speak to what I know. But I feel like it keeps me alive and awake, flying by the seat of my pants, or my dress, because I'm always trying to find new ways to speak to, whether it's the writing, the teaching, or the illustrating, and that keeps the brain awake, and it never gets dull or old. So I think the human spirit needs challenges and needs to be thinking about how to approach things in a new way. And it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you're learning how to cook something, or maybe you try painting for the first time, or you learn to play an instrument. I think we need that as human beings. And so for me, having this profession, it's constantly keeping me awake, sometimes terrified, but mostly excited about life. So that's it in a nutshell.
I like that. And be able to spread that to others.